Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Anshe Chesed. It's a pleasure and an honor to have everybody here. My name is Rabbi. I'm the rabbi here. So for those who don't know, hello. I want to first ask everybody to please make sure that your phones are on silent. So you can turn them off, you can put them on airplane mode, you can make it that they will not be buzzing or anything like that during the presentation for this evening. That is a common courtesy. If you're just putting it on silent and it's still going to vibrate, you're going to be disturbing somebody near you. So please don't do that. Make it that it will not be buzzing or tinging or pinging or ringing during the course of this evening. Thank you. My job this evening is to introduce Rabbi Marty Katz of Just One Life. But before I do that, I have just two announcements regarding the collation afterwards. There's a collation afterwards. The collation has fresh cut fruit, and which is all part, of course, and it has cakes and pastries and cookies, which are all cupcake dairy from BJ's. So if you are flashing, you can only have fruit. Please avail yourselves of the plates, and of course, please clean up after yourselves. This shul is run by volunteers, and we appreciate everybody's assistance in that regard. Thank you very much. There's one person in this building right now who probably never thought that this day would happen. What do I mean? This shul, I think, has more people in it than ever before. Of course, we all know that that's because Rabbi Frand has an incredible reputation. But the person who never thought that this evening would happen is Rabbi Marty Katz, because Rabbi Marty Katz, who knows me since before I was born, probably never thought that I would be introducing him in the shul where I serve as the rabbi. So, am I right? Excellent. I will tell my parents they don't have to cross you off their friends list. A few months ago, Aaron Lehman, who was one of our founding members of the shul, called me up and he said, I just heard my friend speak, and I think we can get him to Anshe Chesed. And I said, okay, Aaron, make it happen. And through a few phone calls and whatever maneuverings and manipulations he made, we are here this evening, and I'm grateful to Aaron for being the shotgun, to getting Rabbi Frand, of world renown, into Anshe Chesed in Boynton Beach, Florida. It's an honor for us to have him, and it's due to your foresight and to your vision that we can make this happen, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank the many volunteers who helped us to coordinate arranging the room and working on the parking so that, logistically speaking, everything could work smoothly as possible, owing to our limited parking and limited space. But thank God it looks like everybody made it. Just One Life is an organization which was founded, I think, 30 years ago. I just met a few minutes ago. Mr. Jack Forgash and his wife are the chairpersons. And they're here tonight. And I want to give you an acknowledgement. You can raise your hands so we can know who you are. Because there was a vision some time ago that in Israel, babies that were not making it to full term, but not because they weren't healthy, they could make it. They could make it if they just had the right financing in order. And so, since that time, they've saved over 17,500 babies. And I would tell you, not just that I think that that's holy work, which they're doing, but there's a connection, of course, to the Parsha this week, because it's the opposite story. This week we're going to read Parshas Bo, and Parshas Bo has the last of 3 of the plagues. And before the last of the plagues, which we all know is the plague of the death of the firstborn, Moshe comes into Paro, and he says to him essentially this, and I'm paraphrasing or making my own mini dialogue, but I think we all know the story. He says, Paro, you know that everything that I told you is going to happen has come true, right? Sure, of course. Well, if you don't let the Bnei Yisrael leave, there's going to be a plague, the death of the firstborn. There's going to be a death in every single household. How can you live with that on your conscience? Paro, you could make this happen. And Paro, stubborn as ever, he says, no, I don't really care. And the Torah tells us that by Yitzei Moshe b'chori af, that Moshe goes out angry. Moshe goes out angry. Why does Moshe go out angry? There are many interpretations. But the one that I like the most is that Moshe was the kind of person, we know this from Moshe's early history of the Torah. He looks out for the underdog. He defends, first of all, he was an underdog. He was saved by the daughter of Paro. He was in a basket. He was watched over by his sister. He protected a Hebrew slave who was being beaten by an Egyptian. He protected a Hebrew slave who was being beaten by another Hebrew slave. He protected the daughters of Israel. And the Midrash tells us that Moshe got to Har Sinai because he was looking out for one little sheep. Moshe hates it when the underdog is not being protected. And what happens in Egypt, Paro has the opportunity to save in every single household just one life. You see what I did, Rabbi Katz? and he chose not to do it. And Moshe says, you're out of your mind. You're crazy. He's so angry because Moshe cared about the Egyptians. I've seen Bibi Netanyahu say that about me. He says, I care more about the Palestinians than Palestinians. Moshe cared more about the Egyptians than Paro did. That's why he leaves B'chori Af. Very angry. So here tonight to introduce you to a person who has the what's your title? Executive Vice President of Just One Life, has been responsible for saving many lives. And he, in turn, will introduce our guest speaker this evening, Rabbi Frand. Please give your attention to Rabbi Mordechai Katz.
Thank you, Rabbi Billet. I go back, I have to be honest, I didn't listen totally in close to Rabbi Billet. So just, can you hear me now? Yeah. Rabbi Billet's father, Rabbi Heshi Billet, and I go back close to 50 years at least. We both received smicha from Soloveitchik and actually learned together and were involved in many different areas in Jewish common work. And the truth is, when Jack Forgesh, and I just want you to know, it's really a thrill. You should know it's a real covet to have my partner, if I could call it that, call Jack, my partner, and chairman and founder Jack and his wife Carol here tonight. When we started, we had lunch, Rabbi Billet, myself, and Jack to talk about the need, the problem, and the cause. I must highlight, and you're going to hear it the entire night, but without, if you want to really give an applause, without the Lehmans, without Aaron and Esther Lehman, we would not be here tonight. So, in so many ways, okay, I've gotten to know them. It was a schus. I was in their home with my wife Yafa, who's here for Shabbos. We really got to know them, and I'm not allowed to say what I know. Of course, he will not speak to me again. But just let me tell you the quintessential Al Chesed in its fullest. Stay in the I met a lot of people over Shabbos. It was a great Shabbos. I knew their families. By the time it's over, 3 companies.
Can you speak louder?
I met many people over Shabbos. Everybody was so nice. They came over as we started talking and speaking. Turns out I knew this one's kids, this one's children, this one's father, relatives, uncles. It was just unbelievable. Okay? Fascinating Shabbos, and I thank you. I'm the director of Just One Life for about 30 years. It's It's not a job. I don't even call it a parnasa. It's a mission. 30 years, I guess you could say it's my life. I have been quoted as saying that if the actor Sylvester Stallone is Rocky, no matter what movie, no matter what he does, he will always be Rocky. And many of you, we're all in the same age bracket here in our time, and if Clayton Moore was the Lone Ranger and wore his mask till he was 92, no matter what, then I should only have the co-op for 120 years unless I'm put out of business. I will always be Jewish Israeli babies. I think Rabbi Billitz explained it very well, and we're going to see a 4-minute video. Pregnant women in crisis. What do they do? Mostly married. They're ambivalent. Should I terminate? There's a group of women who have medical at-risk problems. They possibly can miscarry. They need help in other ways with doctors. I'm talking to the right audience who can go back. We are the house that Ruth built. We are a menu that takes any issue when it comes to pregnancy, and we can help by having a hand that reaches out and directs and funds and gives and cares. And thus, I'm God's messenger. Somebody once called me a holy man. I'm not. I hope I do holy work. And if you're going to be part of tonight, I promise you can do holy work. I'm God's messenger. We have saved over 17,500 babies. And as a good friend of mine told me, Marty, you're wrong. We saved over 100,000. Because if you take those 17,500, some of them are already 30, 28, whatever it is they've married. Do the permutations in there. You're over 100,000. That's many cities in Israel. The formula is unique. You'll see her on the screen. The founding executive vice president, who's now chair lady of the cause, Madeline Gittleman, they put this formula together. How, instead of screaming, yelling, with a soft touch, you could accomplish a lot. People came over to me from Flatbush, from Great Neck, from Connecticut, from California. So I have a feeling if I would stop 5 people, again, our age bracket, and ask who is the quintessential rapper? Who is the rapper? I bet you 50%, if not more, would say Rabbi Solomon Sharpman. Well, Rabbi Solomon Sharpman in his 70s, with Jack Forgash, in his 70s, put together this project when they saw the need. This is his dream, and every time we say the life, it's a schus for Rabbi Solomon Sharpman, known to many in this room. We've saved triplets, twins, and the famous quadruplets. I tell you this story, and then Michael will put the 4-minute video on. 20 years ago, a woman who has 10 children now, married woman, who was expecting 4 babies. The doctors told her to fetal reduce 2. Choose 2. My name's Yael. Choose 2, Yael, and the other 2 will live. Choose 2. Chazdei Hashem, just when life got involved. Chazdei Hashem, from the United States, Jack got involved. Chazdei Hashem, one of our founders and a great doctor from Beersheba, Dr. Shimon Glick, he got involved. Madeline Gittleman got involved. They looked at the records, and as you would say, Be'ivrit, Lo Haya, Lo Nivra, Dr. Glick couldn't understand. Rabbi Shai, these 4 babies are 20 years old. A month before their bar mitzvah 7 years ago, yours truly got on a plane and went just to give them a mazel tov. 2 are doing national service. 1 is in a polo, believe it or not. 1 is working. And this woman, I wish she were here. She has no problem standing up and saying, "How am I doing, Rabbi Billiton drama? I know you were a drama major. I would not have these babies were it not for Nefesh Echad B'Yisrael, just one life. He who saves a life, it's as if he saved the world." Your attention to a 4-minute, it's all it is a 4-minute video. My plea is that you really give as much as you can. If you want to spread out payments over a year, we could do it. If you want to use a credit card, we could do it. $1,800, and I hope I'm not overstepping my balance. I don't know the rules around here, but you know what? What's the worst thing that can happen? They won't tell me to come back. $1,800 is a baby. I can only tell you that if you're part of this Just One Life mission, first of all, I can actually promise God will give you certain zechuyot, but I promise you that when you come to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when you say Kama Yibareinu, you will shake. For some reason, I think you understand, 2 or 3 years in a row, in my shul, they always wind up giving me when it's on a tokef. And it's a shaky feeling when the chazan calls out those particular words. Ashreichem, the video, and I believe Rabbi Frand should be here any moment, and I apologize that we're a little behind schedule, and I understand you always start on time. It's worth waiting for, and understanding this cause and its cause is certainly, trust me, worth it. Yissocher. Michael?
Everyone should be just like God.
Over the past 20 years, Just One Life has been proud to assist expectant mothers in crisis become happy mothers of children. In that time, thousands of Israeli couples have become parents. Families created. Babies who might never have been born arrived to greet the world.
I'm Aliyah. I want to be a princess. Shalom. Shmi B'naya. Ani Ben Sheva. Shani Gadol and Tziniot Mocher. My name is Noah, and I am from yesterday I went to a police.
What's so special about Just One Life? An experienced staff that cares about the mother, helping her become the best she can during trying circumstances, makes Just One Life unique in Israel.
I have a client that I'm meeting now on a regular basis. That the first time she called, this is a woman, a new immigrant. I couldn't understand a word she was saying because she was crying throughout the whole conversation. We're helping her now. She's continuing her pregnancy. She's happy with the fact that she's going to be a mother to another child. And she's very grateful to have us here to help her.
In 2006, we were very happy to open a center for mothers and babies within our office. We have a workshop on baby massage where mothers learn how to help their babies relax. And we've added a workshop on money management and parenting in order to help women use this time to develop their mothering skills.
I have been volunteering with them for many years, and I've met a lot of women. They make all their own choices. It empowers them. They begin to believe in themselves, and they are therefore able to bring a child into the world. And that is what this organization does for them.
Shalom, אני מיכל, ואני 6.5, ואני אוהבת את האמא שלי. Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm 8 and I like playing video games.
Just One Life not only provides financial help, but also treats the mothers with warmth and dignity, offering one-on-one counseling, spa days, and the feeling that someone cares.
יש לי הרבה להודות לנפש אחת בישראל. לא רק קיבלתי עזרה ותמיכה כלכלית, גם הרבה עזרה ונפשית עם עובדת סוציאלית מדהימה שקוראים לה אביטל, שאני אישית מאוד אוהבת אותה ואני לא אשכח אותה. להוקיר תודה למשפחה הזאת שזה כמו בית שלי. 2 weeks ago I walked into a shop in a big mall in Jerusalem. And the sales girl came up to me and said to me, "Are you Avital from Just One Life?" So I looked at her and I said, "Yes." So she said, "I'm 19 today. When I was 10 years old, I came with my mother to your office. And I'll never forget how much you helped her when she was pregnant with my sister."
Shalom, my name is Moria and I am 17 years old. Next year I am going to do my national service up north in the Golan Heights as a tour guide for youth.
Hi, my name is Gabriel. I'm 18. I just started my service in the Israeli Army.
Today, there are so many Just One Life babies waiting to be born. And we know their mothers will feel a little better about having them, about being a good mother, about helping to build the Jewish people in the land of Israel because of what we do at Just One Life.
Can you hear me? A few weeks ago, within 2 or 3 hours, 3 sets of twins were born. And I can assure you that people on King George Street, Just One Life team, made a few phone calls and were somehow involved in helping them. I told you about the quadruplets. You saw some of our products, Baruch Hashem. They serve national service. I know there are some programs of the IDF going on in this community. I know there are some programs about going on in this community relating to the IDF. Several months ago, Jack and Carol were in Israel. I tried to get this piece, but I have email addresses and I'm probably going to send it to you. Many of you heard of ERW? ERW? Yeah? Jerusalem Recollection Project, Ateret Kohanim. Well, they have cases. Yes, there are pregnant women in crisis. And Mr. Forgesh was able to work out that our team would visit those areas and help those pregnant women in crisis. Okay, it's a new project that we are taking hold of. So, is he outside? Yes? Rabbi Philip? Yeah, we're ready?
Yes.
So, after Rabbi Frand, there will be a Marav. Please see me, please see Jack, please see my wife, please see the Lehmans, please see Carol. Bernie is sitting over here. I want to thank Bernie, who is an old friend who's been with this organization for 30 years. And just come over, ask how you can help. And if you can't fund the right, what you think is substantial, come help me. We're trying to raise as much money to bring more Yiddish into the world. For 30 years, I've had the schus of introducing Rabbi Frand. Started in Brooklyn, we've been on the west side, we've been in Fairlawn, we've been in Teaneck. Our relationship began 30 years ago in California. He was Stalin residence. I don't know if you remember this, I was there for Shabbos. I was speaking about Just One Life in its early days. with Shalashudis, and Rabbi Frand speaks about the fact that when I started to speak about the problem, instead of eating his gefilte fish, he twirled it around. The relationship stays, and as a result of his unique and inspirational talks and shiurim and representing us, thousands of babies have been born. So yesterday, Rabbi Billet, in his drasha, his inspiring drasha, the ending spoke about it doesn't matter what age, you can somehow change and find the right aspect of Yiddishkeit that could help you be a better person. I could write the book in the last 30 years of people from 12 to their 90s who have called me that have just taken a piece of Rabbi Yissocher Frand's talks or drushes and just impacted and taken them and made a change. So as Rabbi Billy called out yesterday on Shabbat, it's never too late for any of us. The Choved Rav, one of the Ramim at Ner Yisrael, and Yedid, Rabbi Yissocher Frand.
It's not going to work though.
Good evening. Yeshua Samor Asra, Rabbi Billet, Rabbi Katz, Run Rabban Rabbi Sai, ladies and gentlemen. The sages always tell us that we have to be Pesach before the Aksanya. We have to always begin by thanking the host. The host tonight is several hosts, but it is Anshe Chesed and their Rav, your Rav, Rabbi Billet. Ironically, for the past couple of years, I've spoken at Rabbi Billet's senior shul every Seder Gedalia. And it's always a challenge to speak on a fast day. Rabbi Billet told me what I'm sure he's learned from his many years in the rabbinate, that there are two things that all Balabatim know, and that is when not to say Tachnun and when the fast is over. So there are some speeches you can go over a little, but there's speech on it. Say Gedalia, you gotta time it to the minute. But now it must give Rabbi Billet tremendous nachas to see his son following so successfully in his own footsteps. As Rabbi Katz mentioned, our relationship goes back to that faithful Shalashudis in Los Angeles, California, with just a lesson: you always have to be careful who you sit next to for Shalashudis. But, and I have spoken for Just One Life for many, many, many years in different venues, in different locations, in different cities. And Just One Life is a type of tzedakah that no one could have any type of complaint. It's plain and simple. It is hatzolas nefashos, it's saving human lives. And therefore, I'm comfortable lending my voice to this cause, and that encourage people to have the schus of Chaim, which is Midah Keneged Midah. The Rebbe should grant all of us Chaim Aruchim. One last thank you, and that is I want to thank Rabbi Eli Tillis for being my personal bodyguard, chauffeur, and whatever else. And I want to wish him, I don't know if everyone knows this, he recently on his own learned for smicha and now is a bona fide musmach. So you should be able to be called in chayil l'chayil. Tonight's speech for me is a first. It's a first in the sense that I am beginning this drasha with quoting from the French philosopher Voltaire. I have never, ever began a speech quoting from Voltaire, but his words are very profound and very true. And I know that they are true because I get much real wisdom. The very same thought is found in the Mishnah, which was said centuries before Voltaire. Well, Voltaire made the statement, this is a quote, "The perfect is the enemy of the good." Again, the perfect is the enemy of the good. What does that mean? That means there are many situations in life where people strive for perfection. But if that's not achievable, then they don't even bother trying to at least make the situation better. And thus, the perfect is the enemy of the better, or the good. There are people who will not begin an endeavor or a project if they don't think that they'll be able to finish it themselves. Or they do not start something unless they know they have the resources to do it as well as they would want. And if they don't, then they don't even bother starting. And the result is that nothing ever gets done. V'kan haben shoyel. And here you may ask me, which Mishnah is this? Which Mishnah says this concept of the perfect being the enemy of the better? And the answer is, I think it's a Mishnah notice that many of us, I'm sure, are familiar with. And as the Mishnah says, Hu haya omer, lo olecha hamlocha ligmor, v'lo yata ben chayren, v'doto heimena. Which loosely translated means, it is not always your job to finish the task. Neither are you free not to try. And if you read the Rabbeinu Yonah, classic Perish on Masechta Avos, you read the words of the Rabbeinu Yonah carefully, you will see that Rabbeinu Yonah almost says it explicitly. Don't think any wachav lei v'louchal l'goyma. I don't have the capacity to finish it, and therefore, my Yisrael ba'omo, and why even start? Ma oil b'yigiyosei shlo lechol mikmor. It's not your job to finish. And if that's not explicit enough from the Rabbeinu Yonah, here are the words of Rabbi Nachum Friedman, the Stefanische Rebbe, who said, Ki yesh anoshim she'enam oisin es hatoim. There are no people that don't try to improve. Yan he misamtsin lases hatoim b'yoser. Because it has to be perfect. The yan hadavar koven mehem, and since it's beyond their means and their capabilities, and then the Rebbe says, ironically, Moshel HaTzorfati, the French moshel, the French parable. The Rebbe didn't have apparently liberty to quote Voltaire by name. So he merely said the Moshel HaTzorfati, the French moshel, Hatoiv Yoser, Soineas Hatoiv. The better, the best, or the perfect is the enemy of the good. And the truth of the matter is the basic concept even predates the Mishnah. As we all know that the Pasuk says, Hashemayim shamayim la'Hashem v'oretz l'asam livnei Adam. The Maral explains, Hashemayim shamayim la'Hashem. The Shamayim is the domain of the Rebbeinu Shalom. The domain of the Rebbeinu Shalom of God Almighty is perfect. Because God can be perfect. But the land, this earth, Nasan livnei Adam, He gave to human beings, and human beings by their very nature are not perfect. And that is why Shlomo HaMelech writes in Koheles, ki Adam ein ba'aretz, there's no man on earth, asher yaset tov v'lo. There's no human being, as great as tzaddik as they may be, that's capable of perfection, because he's in the aretz. Ki ein tzaddik ba'aretz. In the land, the earth is a domain of imperfection. It's an imperfect world, and therefore we can always expect imperfection. This problem affects everything from the most mundane to the most important decisions in life. Here's an example from the secular world, but it's an example that I find in the yeshiva as well. I read of a case history of a twice divorced 60-something woman who complained to her counselor of her loneliness. Her counselor finally coaxed her into dating again, but she kept on rejecting potential suitors, in spite of the fact that some of these men were quite compelling. Listen to some of her objections. He's not rugged enough. Or, we are the same height, and I like to wear boots. Her advice to her, give the almost perfect candidate a choice. And when I say I find a similar thing in the yeshiva, is because I teach boys anywhere from age 20 to 23, and many of them are in that stage of life where they're looking for their shidduch, they're looking for their mate. And they come to me for advice during this dating experience. And many of them are looking for Miss Perfect, even though they themselves are not perfect. And they're afraid to settle. That terrible word, to settle. And I tell them this is not a real estate transaction. And then I ask them the pointed question. Do you want to be alone for the rest of your life? Or even though it may not be the best, but it's certainly better than being alone. Classic example of the perfect being the enemy of the better. And here's a more trivial example. I know someone who won't work out unless he has a minimum of 40 minutes in a gym. But if he doesn't have those 40 minutes, he won't work out at all. And if he only has 20 or 30 minutes, then he'll skip the exercise. And this is what people do. I have to find the right gym, I have to find the right outfit, I have to find the right time, and then, and only then, will I work out. How about just going for a walk? That's another example of the perfect being the enemy of the better. This can affect our ruchnius, our spirituality as well. The Medrash describes two people, one of whom the Medrash calls a tipish, a fool. Ha-tipish hazeh nichnas lebeis ha-knesses. A foolish man comes into the shul, and he sees a heated Talmudic discussion going on. How can I participate in this Talmudic discussion? Then the people, the Medrash goes on to say that in spite of the fact that he's intrigued, but the people tell him, you have to start at the beginning. First you have to learn Chumash, and then you have to learn Tanakh, and then you have to learn Mishnah, and then you have to learn Halacha. And after being told all the texts that he has to study, he goes ahead and turns around and leaves the base Medrash. He turns around and he doesn't even come into the base Medrash, because there's no way I'll ever be able to finish all of that. He does an about face and he leaves the room. But if one never starts, it's guaranteed that it'll certainly never finish. And the Medrash contrasts this with a wise person. So first, Shayna Perek Echad, he starts and he learns one chapter. B'chol yoyim v'yoyim ad shemisayim es kol haTorah kula. Again, because you can't achieve that lofty goal of knowing everything, I'm not even going to begin to start. You know, I listened to someone who was a counselor in a situation in which he was trying to convince young people to become Shomer Shabbos. Unfortunately, what coincided at the same time was an important soccer match. And some of the boys there refused to go ahead and even to begin to be Shomer Shabbos because I have to listen to this match. And as a result of that, they never started. And there were other kids in that group that said, okay, maybe I'll watch the soccer match and I'll follow them, but I'll keep some of Shabbos. Today, those people are Shomer Shabbos because they began, because they started. And that person that said, no, I'm sorry, if I can't watch the soccer match, then I don't need the whole thing. You know, there's a wonderful book which I recently read. It's a small book. I would urge many of you to read it. The name of the book is called Life as a Startup. It's written with the subtitle of what founders can teach us about the making choices and managing change. It's written by a religious Jew. His name is Noam Wasserman. He's a former professor at the Harvard Business School. And now he's the founding director of something called the Founders Central Initiative at the University of Southern California. He describes something very interesting. Different handcuffs that sometimes bind us to our present situation and prevent us from moving forward. One of those handcuffs that he describes is what he calls the handcuffs of perfection. He cites numerous examples, mostly having to do with the business world, that people get stuck in their situations, not willing to try something new because of the fear that it won't be perfect. And that's what he means, the handcuffs of perfection that bind you from ever trying something different, because maybe it won't be perfect. Professor Wasserman describes other types of handcuffs. Handcuffs that he calls psychic handcuffs. And he describes how he personally had to battle his own psychic handcuffs because he was considering leaving the Harvard Business School and becoming this founding director of this institute at the University of Southern California. And he described what he called his crimson handcuffs. Crimson, if you don't know, is the colors of Harvard. But he was afraid to leave because I'm going to give up Harvard. And even such a small thing as his email address. His email address was Noam at HBS, Harvard Business School, .edu. And he had to switch to Noam at USC.edu. Now, if you know anything about Harvard and USC, you know that the only thing that USC has better than Harvard is its football team. But Harvard to USC, Atzushtel, a comparison? But he did it. As hard as it was, he was finally able to loosen those crimson handcuffs. And now, rather than being one of 200 professors at Harvard, he's the director of his own institute. Nor should we let the fear of failure be an impediment. People who succeed in life are those that learn from their failures. And that ultimately they'll achieve success. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before he invented the incandescent light bulb. So someone asked him, how does it feel to fail 1,000 times? And you know what Edison answered? He said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. And if you're a basketball fan, you know that arguably the person who's the best player of basketball in the history of the game is Michael Jordan. Some people will argue with me, I'm not such a fan, but one can make that argument. Michael Jordan once said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been entrusted to make the winning shot, and I missed. I failed over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeeded. Because in spite of his failures, he kept on going. And of course, the wisest of all men said this much more profoundly and much more holy. Shlomo HaMelech said this already. Ki sheva yipoel tzadik b'kol. Which means that tzaddik falls 7 times, but gets back up again. There's a famous letter that the great Mechanech, the great Rosh Yeshiva, from Yissocher of Chaim Berlin, is a letter that one of his volumes is a volume of his letters. He was written a letter by a Talmud who apparently had his own personal battles, and he was not succeeding. And he became disillusioned, if not depressed. Rav Hutner then proceeds to explain to him that greatness is achieved by the struggles and even the defeats that one experiences, as long as one keeps on getting up. And he writes about the Chafetz Chaim Zecher Tzadik Livracha and the purity of speech of the Chafetz Chaim. When we conjure up in our imagination that Tzadik Yisrael Olam, a human being close to perfection, we think of the Chafetz Chaim. And Rav Hutner writes, who knows of the battles, hamavakim, the struggles, the mechsholim, the falling down. Shemotza ha-Chafetz Chaim b'derech ha-melchama shaloyim yitzer hara. The Chafetz Chaim was not born the Chafetz Chaim out of the womb of his mother. He became the Chafetz Chaim. And it didn't go easily. And Rav Hutner says there were struggles, and there were battles, and there were defeats. But he got back up again. That's the difference. And Rav Hutner wisely writes, Hatipshim chayshvim, foolish people think, She'achal pi shesheva yipol tzadik mikol makom ukom. That even though the tzaddik falls, he still gets up. Says Rav Hutner, no, that is not the pshat. Aval hachachamim, the wise people know yodim. Shemahus hakima. The way the tzaddik grows is by falling. And therefore the fact that a person fails and has his defeats should deter him from starting. You know, it was David HaMelech's lifelong goal to build the Beis HaMikdash. And yet, Rebbeinu Shalom told David HaMelech, you are not going to build the Beis HaMikdash. Ki yimlu yamecha v'shachaftam avisecha. You will die. It is your son who will build the Beis Hamikdash. He's going to build the Beis Hamikdash. What was one of the last things that David HaMelech did in his life? He went and he bought the property, something called the Har HaBayis, the Temple Mount, where the Beis Hamikdash stood, and Mirz Hashem Imher will stand again. Why did David HaMelech do this? If you know from the beginning you'll not be able to build it, then why start? What's the point? The point is that if I can't finish, I still want to start. Which is the wisdom of that Mishnah in Ovis. It's not always your job to finish the task, but neither are you free not to try. You know, we began this speech quoting from Voltaire. We then showed that it was a Mishnah. And we said it one goes even further back to Shlomo HaMelech. But the truth of the matter is, there was someone who told us this lesson even earlier in the Chumash. And that is Yissocher. Yissocher HaTzadik. Now the Torah tells us of this epic meeting between the two brothers, between Esav and Yaakov. Now Yaakov feared that maybe Esav would wipe out his entire family. So he had an elaborate plan of who should meet them, how they should meet. The protocol was, "Vatikash gamleah v'yilodeha vayishtachu v'achakach nigash Yosef v'rochel vayishtachu." The protocol was that first the mother came to meet Esav, and after her children would be standing. That's the way it happened with the maidservants. That's the way it happened with Leah. But, ironically, with Yosef and Rochel, v'achar nikash Yosef v'rochel vayishtachu. For some reason, when Rochel Imenu had to meet Esav, Yosef stood in front of her, changing the protocol of the other wives. Says Rashi, "Bekulam hayimos nigashes lifnei abanim." The women, the mothers, all came in front of their children. Aval barochal Yosef nikash lefaneha. But Yosef said, "No, I'm going to stand in front of my mother." Why? Says Rashi, "Omar imi yifas tayar," because my mother is beautiful. Shemi yitla bo eino isa Russia. Maybe Esav will look at her and have all sorts of designs on her. And therefore I'm going to protect my mother. And I'm going to stand in front of her. So that Esav won't be able to look at her and have evil thoughts. But one has to wonder, according to the Seder HaDaires, that Yosef was all of 6 years old at the time. And I don't think that Yosef was a 6-footer at the age of 6. Which leads to the question, what was he trying to accomplish? He's a little 6-year-old that probably came up to here on his mother. And even if he was exceptionally tall, but how long would that last? If Esav wanted to look at her, he'd push him aside and look at Rachel. So why bother? Why even try? Told the Rabbi of Yerushalayim, said Yosef is teaching us this very lesson. And he's telling us what Rashi in fact says. I'll stand in front of her, and I will delay him from seeing her. I'll delay. Is it a permanent solution? No. But in life, many times, you cannot look for the perfect solution, for the permanent solution, but you have to do at least what's within your power to do. Or articulated differently, a half loaf is better than no loaf at all. And this is Yosef HaTzadik's approach to life. Do what you can do. Do as much as you can do. Even if it's only a minimal accomplishment. And the thought that I have to do it all or do it perfectly It's not a Jewish concept. Doing something is better than doing nothing. And if you'll indulge me with a Hasidic thought, the Talmud Rebbe says over the following story. He had 2 daughters, and after his 2 daughters, he had a son. The Talmud Rebbe's name is Yitzchak Menachem Weinberg. His father-in-law, who had already passed away, his name was Yaakov Yitzchak. He wanted to name his son after his father. But his father-in-law's name was Yaakov Yitzchak. You can't obviously name him Yitzchak. That's his name, Yitzchak Menachem. So what should he do? Pasha. He'll name him Yaakov. Except his father-in-law had a Yissocher, a principle. If you don't name exactly like after the name of the person that passed away, says garnished. You hear says garnished. For those of you who don't know, garnished means nothing. So, my father-in-law holds, if it's not Yaakov Yitzchak, it says garnished, it's nothing. So what should I do? You can't just name him Yaakov, this is garnished. He was so disturbed by this that he went and he asked the Shaila by the Ger Rebbe. And he told the Ger Rebbe that my father-in-law was of the opinion that it's not the exact name, it's meaningless. But my name is Yitzchak and it was Yaakov Yitzchak, what should I do? The Ger Rebbe sent back this cryptic response. But it is such wisdom, it's such a chap. The Ger Rebbe sent back, garnished is aggressor garnished. Meaning, to do nothing, garnished is aggressor garnished. That's even a bigger garnished. Which means at least epis, at least something. Then your father-in-law held, this is garnished. Oh, but to not name nothing, garnished is aggressor garnished. That's the wisdom of Voltaire. That you try to do whatever you can do. This was Yosef's approach to life. And not only here, but in other areas as well. The Tzror Hamor cites a very interesting medrash. We're all familiar with the story of Yosef in the house of Potiphar, and how he was trying to be seduced by Potiphar's wife. And according to the Gemara Masechta Sota, this went on on a daily basis. She tried to seduce him, and he said no. The Tzror Hamor quotes a medrash that Potiphar's wife said to Yosef, you may hold out today and you may hold out tomorrow, but eventually you're going to do it. So why try? Whereupon Yosef said, you're right. But at least I want to be a tzaddik for another day. And he refused that day, and the next day, and the next day. And he remained a tzaddik. You know, I just recently heard, actually last night, a story about Rav Nosson Wachtvogel. Nosson Wachtvogel was the mashkiach of the Lakewood Yeshiva in the times of Rabbi and Kotler. And there was a boy, a yeshiva boy, that just went off and threw his religious life away and did all sorts of horrible and unimaginable things. And no matter what his Rebbe would tell him, his mashkiach would tell him, he was gone. So So they bought this boy to Rav Nosson Vachfogel. And he said to him, I'll tell you what. You want to go back to your ways? Okay. But for 10 days, I want you to be a tzaddik. Just for 10 days. And if that doesn't work, farfalo. So the boy did it day 1, day 2, day 3. By day 9, he was plotting. I can't do this any longer. I'm going to throw in the towel. And then on day 9, he davened mincha. And something happened at that mincha. And he felt like he never felt in his life. And he felt a closeness with God that he had never, ever achieved. And today he's a religious from Yid. Because he held out. A day, 2, 5, eventually 10. Because he did what Yosef did. You may be right, Mrs. Potiphar, but I'm going to do what I can. A half a loaf is better than no loaf at all. Which helps me explain a perplexing Gemara in Masechta Yuma. The Gemara says in Masechta Yuma that a poor person and a wealthy person and a person who's a Rasha who has a big Yetzer Hara, they all come after 120 years to the Kisei HaKavod to give accounting of their lives. And if the poor person says, sorry God, I couldn't keep the mitzvahs, I couldn't keep the Torah because I was so poor. We say to him, you were so poor, were you more poor than Hillel? Remember the famous story with Hillel? He wanted to hear the shear, went up on the top of the roof so he could hear it through the skylight and it snowed, etc., etc. Hillel did it. Why can't you do it? And if the usher comes to Bezdin, the Yeshiva Shalmaila, and he says, I was so busy with my investments, I just didn't have time to learn to daven nothing. So he said, were you more wealthy than Rav Eliezer ben Charasain, that was fabulously wealthy? He was able to do it. And when the person with the Yetzer Hara that couldn't control his evil inclinations comes to the Yeshiva Shalmaila and they say, why don't you control your Yetzer Hara? He says, I have such a big Yetzer Hara. He says, do you have a bigger Yetzer Hara than Yosef? Or your Nisyonis, were your temptations bigger than Yosef? Yosef did hell. Why can't you? So I've always had a kash on this Gemara. If they tell the guy, why weren't you Yosef? He would say, Ribbana Shalom, I got news for you. I ain't Yosef. I'm just not Yosef. What do you want from me? I'm Poshet Chaimo, a barrel, whoever it may be. Was willst du von mir? I'm not Yosef. You know, there are very few people throughout the Torah called Yosef, called Hatzadik. Yosef's Hatzadik. Sorry, Brother Shalom. Ich bin nicht kein Tzadik. Was willst du von mir? What do you want from me? You know what the Brother Shalom tell them? Yeah, I know. We know you're not Hatzadik. You're not telling us anything new. But you could have held out another day. Or another 2. Just like Yosef. He held out. He said, Mrs. Potiphar, you're right, I'm going to do it. But not today. One more day I'm going to remain inside. That's what a person is going to be held accountable for just giving in, for not trying. Because the story of the success of life, as we have seen, is for trying to do your best. Trying to do your best, what you can do, even though it may not be perfect. The perfect is the enemy of the better. And this applies to so much of life. Have you ever tried decorating your home? Were you looking for that perfect piece that would make the room? And you looked, and you looked, and you looked, and you could not find that perfect piece. You're naughty, right? This happened to you. So what happened in the end? Did the job get done? No! It's mundane. But it affects everything. It affects shidduchim, it affects life, it affects jobs, it affects everything. It affects ambition. So I can't be CEO. So I'll be COO. I can't be COO. So I'll be whatever I'll be. But you gotta do it, you gotta try. You have to start. It's not your job to necessarily finish. But neither are you free not to try. Good night.
Another minute to be heard on the mic? Yeah, mic's on? Yeah. Okay. First of all, we will have a mark. Okay, we will have a mark. Men, please come closer. Again, everybody you have, listen, my job is again to make the pitch. Everybody has a pledge card. You could take it home and send in the check. You could go online. You could come over to me or to Jack or my wife or Carol and ask us to send you a bill. We need people to help. We need babies. I will tell you that coming into tonight, a couple babies from this community, Baruch Hashem, will be born. We need more Jewish children. So calling Rabbi Frand, try. You don't have to finish it totally. Try. Bring others in part of the trying, and then I think we can come close to a situation where we really can have Hatzlah. Thank you. And here's Rabbi Bill.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much, Rabbi Katz. This is how you talk into a microphone. Thank you. We're going to move the mechitzas back shortly so that we can daven Marav. Anybody who would like to join us for Marav is welcome. Of course, if you already daven, or if you're not going to daven, you can go into the hallway. Again, those who missed the announcement at the outset, the pastries are dairy. They're either Chav K dairy or OU dairy. And